The hay ignites first. 6 bales, stacked in a wooden cart, parked beneath a kerosene torch, mounted to the tunnel wall 300 feet underground. The flame drips. The straw catches. Smoke curls upward through the cherry mine's second vein, a black ribbon uncoiling in the darkness where nearly 500 men and boys are working this Saturday morning, November 13th, 1909. The fire spreads to the wooden support timbers. Within minutes, the tunnel becomes a furnace. The men nearest the flames try to push the burning cart away from the main shaft, but this only spreads embers deeper into the labyrinth. The wood framework, dry pine beams holding back millions of tons of Illinois earth, begins to burn. The escape route transforms into a corridor of flame. By the time the surface crew realizes what is happening below, the cherry mine has become a crematorium. Before the day ends, 259 men and boys will be dead. Some burn, most suffocate. All die because a coal company valued speed over safety, profit over preparation, and production over the lives of immigrant workers who could be replaced as easily as the mules that haul the coal cars. The fire does not start by accident. It starts because the St. Paul Coal Company operates the mine with kerosene torches and lanterns after the electrical system fails earlier that week. The company does not repair the electrical lighting. It does not halt production. It tells the miners to work by open flame in a tunnel filled with coal dust, timber supports, and hay for the mules. The mine superintendent knows this is dangerous. Everyone knows. But to understand why the company makes this choice, why it places 480 workers in a death trap and lights the fuse, you must understand what coal means in 1909 America and what miners mean to the men who own the coal. The cherry mine opens in 1905, built by the St. Paul Coal Company to supply fuel for the trains of its parent corporation, the Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul Railroad. The mine consists of 3 horizontal coal veins stacked vertically, connected by 2 shafts, one main, one secondary. The main shaft holds a steel hoisting cage that carries men and coal. The secondary shaft contains wooden stairs and ladders. A massive fan in a side chamber pushes fresh air through the tunnels. The design looks modern on paper, but in practice the mine is built with wood. The support beams are wood. The stairs are wood. The ventilation shaft is lined with wood. When the mine catches fire, it becomes a 400-foot deep oven with workers trapped at the bottom. The miners are immigrants, primarily Italians, many speaking no English. Boys as young as 11 work alongside their fathers, paid not by the hour, but by the ton of coal they extract. A family's survival depends on production. A missed day means hunger. A complaint means termination. The St. Paul Coal Company knows this. It knows these men have no leverage, no recourse, no alternatives. It knows they will descend into the earth even when the lights fail and the company hands them kerosene torches. If you've followed this story so far and want to see how it ends, how the fire spreads, who dies, who escapes, subscribe now. These are the stories that don't make it into history textbooks. The disasters erased by time and corporate silence. But the danger is not just the open flames. The danger is that the cherry mine uses hay. 60 to 70 mules work underground, hauling coal cars through tunnels too narrow and low for men to stand upright. The mules need food. The mine stores hay underground in wooden carts. On the morning of November 13th, someone parks one of these hay carts beneath a kerosene torch mounted to the tunnel wall. The hay dries out in the mine's stale air. The kerosene drips. The inevitable happens. The cart ignites at approximately noon. Workers notice smoke 45 minutes later. By then, the fire is uncontrollable. The wooden timbers are burning. The men try to extinguish the flames, but there is no water supply in the second vein. They try to move the burning cart, but this spreads embers throughout the tunnel. The fire reaches the main shaft. Smoke pours upward. Panic spreads faster than the flames. The cherry mine is not the first disaster. It is part of a pattern. 2 years earlier, in December 1907, the Monongah mine in West Virginia explodes, killing 362 men. That same year, 18 separate coal mine disasters occur across the United States. Between 1900 and 1910, 20,000 coal miners die while working. The average life expectancy for a coal miner in this era is shorter than for a soldier in wartime. Mine owners know the dangers. They know that ventilation systems fail, that gas pockets ignite, that wooden supports collapse. They know and they do nothing because changing the system costs money, and dead miners cost nothing. A man can be replaced. A timber support beam, once installed, represents a permanent expense. The economic calculation is clear. The St. Paul Coal Company chooses profit. The miners pay with their lives. The families who live in Cherry, Illinois, exist in a state of permanent vulnerability. The town is a company town, built by and for the St. Paul Coal Company. The houses are company houses. The store is a company store. The men work in the company mine. When a miner dies, his family faces eviction and starvation. There is no safety net, no insurance, no compensation. A widow receives nothing. Orphans receive nothing. The company might offer a few $100s if the dead man's family does not cause trouble. Most immigrants, unable to speak English, unable to hire lawyers, accept whatever pittance is offered. The economic dependence is total. The community cannot protest. The families cannot leave. They are trapped as surely as the men underground. If you've ever wondered why workers tolerated these conditions, why they didn't simply refuse to work, this is why. The alternative to dangerous work is no work, and no work means death by starvation instead of death by fire. The moment the smoke reaches the surface, chaos erupts. The mine manager, John Bundy, reverses the ventilation fan, attempting to blow the smoke and flames out of the mine. This decision, made with good intentions, proves catastrophic. The reversed airflow fans the flames into an inferno. The fire races up the secondary shaft, igniting the wooden stairs and ladders. The escape route burns. Men trapped in the lower veins now have only one way out: the hoisting cage in the main shaft. Bundy realizes his mistake. He reverses the fan again, then shuts it down entirely. He orders both shafts sealed to smother the fire by cutting off its oxygen. This traps hundreds of men underground. The fire continues to burn on the remaining oxygen. The sealed shafts prevent fresh air from entering. Carbon dioxide and nitrogen, black damp, miners call it, accumulates in the tunnels. The men breathe it. The gas suffocates them. Some die from smoke inhalation, others from toxic gas. A few burn. Most simply run out of air, collapsing in the darkness, lungs straining for oxygen that no longer exists. Some men escape in the first chaotic minutes. 200 workers reach the surface using the hoisting cage before the shafts are sealed. Some climb the burning secondary shaft stairs, their clothes catching fire, skin blistering, lungs seared by superheated air. They emerge blackened, burned, gasping. Others are not fast enough. John Bundy leads a rescue team back down into the mine. 12 men volunteer to descend into the smoke and flames to save their co-workers. They make 6 trips in the hoisting cage, bringing men to the surface each time. On the 7th trip, the cage operator misunderstands the signals from below. The cage rises too slowly. When it reaches the surface, every man inside, rescuers and rescued alike, is dead burned and suffocated. Bundy and his volunteers die trying to save others. Their bodies are brought up in the same cage they used for rescue. The destruction does not end at the mine shaft. The fire burns for days. The mine remains sealed to starve the flames of oxygen, but this means the men trapped below remain sealed as well. Families gather at the surface. Women and children stand vigil, waiting for news that does not come. Some miners' families are entirely Italian, unable to understand the English-speaking company officials who offer no information, no hope, no answers. The company posts casualty lists, but many names are misspelled or missing entirely. Widows do not know if they are widows. Children do not know if they are orphans. The community disintegrates into grief and uncertainty. Cherry, Illinois, a town of 2,000 people, loses more than 1/10 of its population in a single afternoon. Nearly every family has a father, brother, son, or husband underground. The economic impact is immediate. Without miners' wages, families cannot pay rent. The company store stops extending credit. Hunger spreads as quickly as the fire. The final count takes weeks to compile. 259 men and boys confirmed dead. 36 mules also perish, their bodies left to rot in the sealed tunnels. The human toll breaks down along predictable lines. Immigrants, primarily Italian. Young men with families. Boys as young as 11 who should have been in school, but instead worked underground because their families needed the income. The St. Paul Coal Company had violated child labor laws. 7 months after the disaster, the company pleads guilty to 9 counts of employing underage workers. The fine is negligible. No executive goes to prison. No manager loses his job. The company pays a small penalty and resumes operations as soon as the mine can be reopened. The investigation into the disaster reveals a pattern of negligence so blatant it borders on the criminal. The coroner's inquest finds that the St. Paul Coal Company knew the electrical system had failed, knew that kerosene torches were dangerous, knew that hay stored underground near open flames was a fire hazard. The company had been warned. Mine inspectors had noted safety violations. Workers had complained. None of it mattered. The company calculated that the cost of shutting down the mine to repair the electrical system exceeded the cost of potential lawsuits from dead miners' families. The company was correct. Even after the disaster, even after 259 deaths, the financial penalty is minimal. The company's insurance covers most of the payouts. The executives face no personal liability. The system protects the owners and crushes the workers. But then, 8 days after the fire starts, something impossible happens. 21 men emerge from the mine alive. And these survivors, later known as the 8-Day Men, had built a makeshift wall of debris to protect themselves from the fire and toxic gases. They drank water seeping from a coal seam. They rationed their strength. They moved deeper into the mine to escape the advancing black damp. For 8 days they survived in total darkness, not knowing if rescue would ever come. When they finally tore down their protective wall and made their way through the tunnels, they encountered a rescue party that had re-entered the mine once the fire subsided. One of the 21 dies 2 days later from asthma complications. 20 men survive, 259 do not. Why does this keep happening? Why do mine disasters recur with such regularity that newspapers barely cover them anymore? The answer is economic. And coal drives the American economy in 1909. Railroads run on coal. Factories burn coal. Homes heat with coal. The demand is insatiable. The companies that own the mines operate under a simple calculation. Safety measures reduce productivity and increase costs. A well-ventilated mine requires more infrastructure. Electrical lighting requires maintenance. Fireproof materials cost more than wood. Properly trained workers demand higher wages. Every safety improvement cuts into profit margins. The executives who run these companies do not work underground. They do not breathe coal dust. They do not risk burial or burning. They make decisions from offices in Chicago and New York, decisions driven entirely by balance sheets. A dead miner represents a one-time payout, if the family even sues, which most immigrant families cannot afford to do. A safety upgrade represents a permanent reduction in profitability. The math is clear. The companies choose profit. The miners die. Leave a comment below if you think anything has changed, if you believe modern corporations value workers over profits. The Cherry Mine disaster happened more than a century ago, but the pattern remains. The legacy of Cherry is complicated. In 1910, Illinois passes stronger mine safety regulations requiring better ventilation, fireproof materials, and emergency escape routes. In 1911, Illinois enacts its first workers' compensation law, directly inspired by the Cherry disaster. The law requires companies to provide financial support to families of workers killed on the job. It is a milestone, one of the first such laws in the United States. Other states follow Illinois' example. By 1920, most states have some form of workers' compensation. The Cherry Mine disaster, combined with the Monongah explosion and other tragedies, eventually leads Congress to create the Bureau of Mines in 1910, tasked with improving mine safety. These are real changes, real reforms, but they come too late for the 259 men and boys who died in Cherry. They come too late for the widows and orphans left destitute, and they come only because the public outcry becomes too loud to ignore, because journalists document the horror, because labor unions organize and demand accountability. A monument stands today in Cherry, Illinois. Erected in 1971 by the state, it lists the names of the dead. Many are Italian names, misspelled in the original casualty reports and corrected only decades later through genealogical research. Another monument, unveiled in 2009 on the centennial of the disaster, stands at Cherry Village Hall. Families of the victims gather there each November 13th to remember. The mine itself is gone, filled in and sealed. The tipple and fan house, visible in historical photographs, have been demolished. The town survives, diminished. Most people driving through Cherry today have no idea what happened here. The disaster has been forgotten, erased from popular memory, reduced to a historical footnote. But the pattern it represents, corporate negligence, worker exploitation, profit over safety, continues. Different industries, different workers, same calculation. Before you go, subscribe to this channel. These stories matter. The men who died in Cherry matter. Their names matter. If you found this documentary valuable, leave a comment, share it. Make sure this story is not forgotten again.